There is going to be a huge and dangerous storm that is going to be coming to the United States as we go into Monday and Tuesday of this upcoming week. And this storm is going to bring some significant severe weather to parts of the United States. This includes the threat of significant damaging winds, large to very large hail, and as well as several tornadoes anywhere from the Great Plains back into the Midwest, and as well as even into the Ohio Valley and the lower Mississippi Valley. So in today's weather forecast, we're going to break down everything that you need to know about this storm, when you're going to see storms, and if you will even see storms, in addition to what the threats of severe weather will be and where they'll be the most significant. So let's begin with what's happening right now in the United States that's going to lead to this large storm. And as of right now, it's actually pretty nice across most of the country. Get outdoors today. It's fantastic weather. Look at the cloud cover. There's hardly any right now anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains, and even across the Rocky Mountains. Once again, beautiful weather right now. Make sure to get outdoors. It should be fantastic for most of the country. The only exception is going to be back up here in the Northeast, where we do still have a trough that is going to be continuing to bring some showers throughout the day today, and there's also a threat of severe weather tomorrow across Ohio and even Pennsylvania, with some damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado or two being possible. So we'll have to watch for that a little bit as well. But back over on the West Coast, this is what our concerning storm is. This is the one that is going to bring the threat of some significant severe weather as we go into next week across much of the Great Plains, the Midwest, and as well as the lower Mississippi Valley. And what I mean by next week would literally be 2 days from now. So Monday and Tuesday is when we're watching for this disturbance to move over the Rocky Mountains and eventually setting up a significant severe weather threat for Monday. And then eventually into Tuesday, we have another large threat of severe weather from the Midwest back into Louisiana. And we'll be breaking this down for you in detail here in just a moment. But I do want to remind you, it's fantastic weather this weekend. High temperatures today in the 80s and even near 90 in some areas across the Great Plains. Many areas by tomorrow will be cranking into the 90s, as areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas will start to go into the low 90s as we go into Sunday. So beautiful weather, a little bit warm for this time of the year if you're in the central and southern plains, and even the Midwest. Some areas like Chicago could get close to 80 degrees as we go into Sunday. With beautiful weather does come severe weather, at least in the month of April. That's how it goes, and that means that we're going to have several days of severe weather following this beautiful weekend, and that all begins tomorrow across areas in the Northeast and the Ohio Valley, where we actually have a slight risk for severe weather for those in Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. And there's also a marginal threat that goes up into southern New York and back into Indiana. It's a bit rare for this time of the year for areas like New York to be under a threat of severe weather. Luckily, it's a low threat overall. The main concern is going to be some isolated damaging winds. There is actually a low tornado risk, so keep this in mind if you're in the Northeast. This is what the timing looks like for tonight. Overall, going to be staying dry tonight, but by tomorrow morning, we'll have some showers across areas in western New York and Ontario. Once we go into the afternoon hours, that is when a line or a cluster of storms will develop right around 3 to 4 o'clock. And the main concern again with this will be damaging winds as this moves down to the south, but there might be an isolated tornado in there, so just keep that in mind. Have a few ways to receive alerts there and a tornado action plan in place. As we go into the evening hours, that area of storms moves down to the south, and overall this will be a relatively short-lived severe weather event, maybe 3 to 4 hours of severe weather, and then we'll be done as we go into the late evening and as well as into the overnight hours there across parts of the Northeast and as well as the Ohio Valley. Now, as we go into Monday, it gets much different. We're talking about a much more significant threat of severe weather across a large chunk of the Great Plains. Notice the Storm Prediction Center has already issued an enhanced risk for severe weather, which is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. That includes areas like southern Kansas, a large chunk of Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, and as well as north central Texas, where all modes of severe weather will be possible. And we very easily, with this particular event, could have a severe weather outbreak or even a tornado outbreak. So definitely make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts and have a tornado action plan in place just in case you do see severe weather on Monday. With that being said, we have a very large marginal threat as well and slight risk, and this is an entire area that we're watching for on Monday. So we're not just watching that enhanced risk, we're watching areas all the way up into South Dakota, and we're also watching areas all the way back through the hill country of Texas, where there will be the potential for some significant hail, damaging winds, and as well as a few tornadoes. I would not be surprised if we got a larger enhanced risk in one of these future outlooks, mainly for large hail and that tornado risk. There may even be a moderate risk in future outlooks, but for the time being, the Storm Prediction Center is staying a little bit conservative because this particular event overall is a little bit dicey right right now. We don't necessarily know what's exactly going to happen here, whether we are going to see a significant severe weather outbreak or it's going to be more limited due to the cap and as well as the cloud cover throughout the day Monday still remains very unknown. There's two different scenarios here. Either one, it goes pretty big and we get a lot of severe weather, or two, it stays relatively smaller but still produces some severe weather even though that cap or cloud cover as well will be in place. There is also a hatched area which does represent that there will be some significant severe weather with large hail, damaging winds, and as well as a few tornadoes being possible. Once we go into Tuesday, which is tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday, we do have a slight risk for severe weather, which is a very large area from Kansas, Iowa, and Wisconsin back into the entire state of Illinois, and as well as Indiana, back into western Kentucky, western Tennessee, almost all of Arkansas, also Missouri, almost the entire state of Missouri is also included, and also northeast Texas, which is also included in the slight risk. It has a very large and broad area, which does kind of give me the idea here that there will probably be at least some level of an enhanced risk for severe weather, especially across areas in the Midwest. I would not be surprised if that went even higher after that, so just keep that in mind. It looks like probably another significant day of severe weather on Tuesday. Overall, all modes of severe weather once again will be possible, including damaging winds, large hail, and as well as a few tornadoes. Now, with all that being said, this is going to be a pretty rare setup when it comes to severe weather, so I do want to show you a little bit of what the severe setup will be for both Monday and Tuesday. And overall, we're going to have a large-scale trough move over the Rocky Mountains as we go into Monday. Here's your low pressure system, and by the way, this is the jet stream. Gives us an idea of the weather patterns that are happening across the United States. And this low pressure system is going to be fairly strong when it comes to the winds on the eastern side. That's where we're going to have the potential for severe weather. And we are going to have a little jet streak here back over New Mexico. That'll move off to the northeast as we go into the late evening Monday, when the best chance for severe weather will exist, which will be late Monday into early Tuesday morning. And that'll really ramp up as we go into that time frame. So during the late evening, very strong jet stream across areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. This will help to organize supercells for sure across these areas. And that's one of the most concerning features here is, one, it's going to be pretty organized severe weather. And then two, this is also a negatively tilted trough, which does mean we are going to get a stronger pull of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico. In addition to that, there will likely be some more shear in this area. And another thing I do want to point out is that this will be a closed low, and this doesn't happen too often, but when we get closed lows, that usually does indicate that the trough itself will be moving a bit slower, and this sometimes can mean it's a more organized low pressure system as well. Here's the low level jet, which gives you more of an idea of the rotation in the lower levels, and this will kind of give us an idea that, hey, there's going to be a pretty strong area here of the low level jet across areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, even Nebraska and Texas, and this will help to amplify the tornado risk quite a bit as we go into Monday evening. And this will also help to organize the veering profiles across much of the atmosphere, which is what we need when it comes to having the potential for some tornado threat. We do usually need some veering in the atmosphere. Once we go into Tuesday, we are going to even have a stronger low-level jet across the Midwest. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll have a greater tornado risk. We still need other things to go right for that to happen, but overall, it is also going to be pretty strong as we go into Tuesday. By Wednesday, I don't think we're going to have too much severe weather left over. Just an FYI. I know we haven't talked much about Wednesday, but I think the risk overall will be quite low. Here's the moisture as we go into Monday. This will not be really a problem. A lot of the severe weather events that we've had recently, there has not been enough moisture in the low levels or even the mid levels. In this case, we are going to have a lot of that across areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, where dew points will be in the low to mid 60s. For reference, the past events across the Great Plains that we've had, the dew points have been in the 40s and low 50s. They've been super unfavorable. So this will be a much more favorable dynamic here across areas in the Great Plains. And as we go into Tuesday, dew points in the low to mid 60s across much of the Midwest as well. That will allow for some severe weather. I think one of the craziest things to look at is the significant tornado parameter. This is the NAM model, giving us an idea that there could be quite a significant tornado risk if all things go according to plan and according to forecast. There easily could be a few tornadoes across western Oklahoma, and a strong tornado risk will definitely exist with this particular setup. But values like this are not something that we see very often. In the range of 4 to 5, that would indicate a medium to sometimes even high risk for tornadoes in a localized area. So we will have to watch this very closely. The NAM model does like kind of backtrack on this as we go into the late evening and as well as into the overnight hours Monday across areas like East Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. So there will still be some level of a tornado risk, but it'll probably be lower overall in those areas. And then also for reference, in the Midwest, the NAM model showing a bit of a lower tornado risk, but it definitely still exists for those back over in Western Illinois, Iowa, and as well as Missouri, and even back down through areas like Arkansas. Now, I'm not going to go super in detail about the timing because we are still several days out, but I do want to give you at least a broad overview of what will be happening. And once again, this weekend looks beautiful for most of the country, but once we go into Monday afternoon and evening, that is when storms will begin to ramp up. And I do think the majority of the severe storms on Monday are not really going to develop until we go into the evening hours, so probably after sunset. And notice even the European model is only showing a handful of storms that develop even around 9 o'clock as we go into Monday, so it doesn't look to be anything too substantial until we really get into the late evening into the early overnight hours. That's when I think this greatest severe weather threat will exist, and that is unfortunate because that means we're going to be dealing with some sort of nocturnal threat of severe weather, which means that there could be tornadoes happening when people are sleeping, and that's something that we don't want to happen. So we obviously want to make sure if you are in these areas and you do go to bed, make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place and have multiple ways to receive alerts. As we go into Tuesday, this area of storm activity gets a lot more widespread, and I actually do think Tuesday could be rather significant comparatively to Monday. As long as there is no cloud cover and really no cap in this area, there's definitely a better shot, I think, and a higher likelihood at least of there being severe weather on Tuesday, especially across areas in the Midwest during the late afternoon into the evening hours. That could lead to some significant severe weather, and then by Wednesday into Thursday this moves to the northeast. But I do think capping is going to be an issue on Monday, and if that's overcome, we easily could see significant severe weather and a significant tornado event. But if that's not overcome, it very easily could just be something that is very minor. So obviously make sure that you're staying tuned, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll be keeping you posted with the latest as we get closer to this severe weather event.